Welcome back to Nightstand Coffee. This is episode 8 of season 1. I am Todd.
And I'm Jennifer.
And we're glad you're joining us for our conversation today.
We're talking about how to care for each other.
Yeah, and specifically how to care for each other kind of during difficult seasons, right?
Right. Well, and so probably what prompted me to want to discuss this was just recently I've got some friends that are going through some things, like they've got some tough times in their extended family, or I have some clients even that are dealing with hard stuff at work. And so just seeing how that impacts the relationship. And then even just my own personal experience and my experience with my parents, like I've just seen these things kind of trickle down that one spouse is going through something, and then how does that impact the other spouse, and just in all the things about that. So I wanted to discuss that today.
Right. So, I mean, everyday stresses are difficult enough to navigate.
Right.
But when there's kind of a season of higher stress, you know, whether there's a major transition in a job or whether there's, illness or difficulty in a family situation, or whether, you're having a difficult season with one of your kids, and, any of those things, like those added kinds of stressors can put additional pressure and additional stress on a relationship, and it can be really difficult for us to navigate. And so we need to know how to really care for each other during those seasons.
Well, and I guess I want to couch it in that whatever the issue is, it like very much impacts one spouse, which then trickles over and impacts the second spouse.
Right.
The other one. And so like sometimes these things impact both, and like you're in it together, and that may be a different topic altogether. But
sure.
But specifically today, what I want to be talking about is like you've got one spouse that's having to deal with something extra, and then how do you manage that within your marriage?
Right. Well, I think the reality is that these things always impact both parties. Mm-hmm. It's just that our perception is, well, that's their issue. Mm-hmm. And so then we don't partner with them in it. We just kind of watch them go through it. And then our response might be to get upset because then it does start impacting us, and we don't think it should.
Right.
So
and it could even be like if you have a child and it's a second marriage.
Right.
So maybe it's your own child that has some difficulty or is needing extra attention. So then the step parent doesn't feel as obligated to manage it.
Yeah.
But yet they're there watching what's happening and being impacted by it. So, any of those things. Yeah.
Or, sometimes, there's a situation that takes our spouse away, like literally, like from a perspective of time. They're having to give their time and energy to this situation that's come up. And so they're doing that out of necessity, taking care of a family member, or dealing with, maybe there's maybe there were layoffs at their job, and now they've gotten additional responsibilities, and it's requiring more time of them for a season, whatever those things might look like. But literally, the situation has taken time from the relationship. And so then what we can often do is, because then it starts to impact us, and really we're missing our spouse, right? We're missing that time with them. But rather than recognizing it for what it is and say, man, I know this is really hard. I know you're really going through a tough season, but I want you to know that I miss you. Mm-hmm. Rather than doing it that way, we can get selfish and snippy and, say mean things, or just pout, or, whatever, which adds additional stress to our spouse.
Right.
Because they want to be with you, hopefully, right?
Right.
And hopefully they're missing that time together too. Mm-hmm. But they're in a situation where they have to give the attention that is needed to the crisis.
So let's start talking about like the crisis itself. And so from that spouse's perspective. So
from which spouse's perspective?
Well, the one that's going through the crisis.
Okay.
So let's start there, and then we'll transition to the responses, right?
Okay.
So like when you're the spouse that's facing something hard, again, whether it's a job, whether it's a child, whether it's a family member, an illness, something that's shifting. It's like, and I really want to be focusing on this is situational, and that like it's an all of a sudden thing almost.
Yeah.
Right. It's like something that's like, oh, okay, I've got to do this right now.
Yeah. So we're talking about special circumstances,
Right.
that should only be for a season. We're not talking about the everyday things that,
Right.
like, we're not talking about a husband that's a workaholic and has a pattern of sacrificing his family at the altar of work and
Right.
achievement.
Right.
We're talking about a special circumstance.
Well, and so for whatever reason, an example that makes sense to me would be like, for instance, my sister's an attorney. And so from time to time, she'll have major court cases that would take her away from her family, that she would have to spend extra time focusing on that.
Right.
So go ahead.
Or I was going to say, or even as a pastor, there are certain times of the year, certain seasons of the year where I am more occupied at the church. Like, it takes more time. It takes, there's a lot going on. There are things that are happening. But we recognize that those are seasons in the year. It's not, this is not going to be how we live all the time. But it does create stress.
Right. And so I think it's important that if you are the person, the spouse dealing with the stress, that that you are able to acknowledge that you see it as situational, that you see, oh, okay, this is something that's coming up. And so then they need to talk to their spouse about that, right? They need to go to them and say, hey, I foresee that this is going to take my extra time. Like, I see that I'm going to be obligated to this situation for a while. Yeah. And so, like, I want you to know that I may not be around as much. Like, I may not be able to be at home. I might not be able to go help pick up the kids. I may not be able to go to the grocery store or whatever it is. Yeah. Like, I may not be available, and I may be coming home at bedtime, right? Like, and not having extra time. So I'm going to need some extra support because whatever's happening is requiring my attention.
So a crisis happens and it becomes apparent that it's not going to be something that's going to just take a day or two to overcome. Right. It's going to be more extended. So you're saying at that point, when you recognize, oh man, this is going to take, then you go to your spouse and you sit down and you say, hey, here's what, you're aware of what's going on. I think this is going to take a while. Let's talk about what this looks like for us to navigate this together.
Yes. Well, and just acknowledging that there is going to be a shift. Yeah. Like, I anticipate a shift. I mean, the person could be like negotiating a contract or something. And so then, like, you're going to have to go to meetings, or you're going to have to take phone calls, or your parent is aging and on their deathbed. And so then maybe they pass, and then you've got, like, we're going to have to deal with their estate, like whatever those things are. Yeah. Or my child's having a child, and so I feel obligated to be, with them while they're having their baby, and then helping them once they give birth, once the baby comes home, all those things. Like, you foresee that there's going to be a shift in your time and your obligation. So you got to talk about it.
Right.
And so hopefully then that the receiving spouse, the one that's being neglected, would be able to recognize those things and see it for what it is and appreciate the warning, right? You've been given a heads up. Things are going to be different for a little bit because I've got to spend time doing this thing.
Well, and I think if you're the spouse who's dealing with the crisis, then you need to acknowledge, hey, I know this is going to affect you. I know this, this is going to affect the amount of time we're able to spend together. This is going to change you're going to have to do some more things maybe around the house. You're going to have to, take on some additional responsibilities that you don't normally. I recognize that this is going to have an impact on you.
Yeah. And acknowledging it is huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then if you have insight into what you feel like you're going to need from your spouse during your time of crisis, I think it's important to communicate that.
Yeah.
Like, if you can say, like, listen, I'm going to need you to be the one that makes the grocery list and then goes to the grocery store. Or I'm going to need you to be patient with me. Or I'm going to need to be able to come home and talk to you about what I've been going through.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully, right? Hopefully we are in tune enough with our spouse. We're aware enough of, we know them well enough to know what, to anticipate kind of the support that they're going to need in a time of crisis. Hopefully we're looking out for that. Hopefully we're making a habit of paying attention to what our spouse needs from us. And if we're not, maybe that's a question we need to, wrestle with. Like, why am I not paying attention to what my spouse needs and proactively doing what I can to meet those needs?
Well, and so then during the crisis, I think that crisis spouse, you need to be also aware of how it's impacting them and acknowledge those things. Be sensitive to the fact. So yes, you're away handling a crisis, but like, so your spouse is home holding down the fort or doing whatever it is that they're doing. And so like you can't completely tune out to that and be like, well, I told them, you know. Like
And-
you need to be sensitive to what their experience is too in that time.
Yeah, and what I'm picking up on, and what I think people who are listening to this will be picking up on by now, is that the thing that we have to aim for is making sure that we are paying attention to and are sensitive to the way that the situation is impacting our spouse. What we tend to do is just go, here's how this is impacting me. And they don't even see it. They don't even care. They don't even know, and we're looking at ourselves. And whenever we are focused on ourselves, that's where we get into trouble. I'm constantly, like, the thing that comes to mind for me in these kinds of situations is that Jesus said the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. And that is the model, and that is the example that we should be striving for. That I'm not here to be served. I'm here to serve you, right? And so if I'm focused on you and on meeting your needs, then then that guards against selfishness, and that keeps me from turning inward and being focused on what I want and what I need and what I if it's me all the time, then that's a problem.
Well, and so then I think the crisis spouse needs to be able to talk to their spouse about the other spouse, what's going on within them, what they're dealing with, what they're facing. I think the crisis spouse, once the crisis ends, then they need to, they can take a little bit of a breather.
Yeah.
Not too long, right? Like you might need some emotional recovery time for yourself because it's been very taxing. But as soon as you can, you need to reestablish connection with your spouse that's been waiting on you in the wings, so to speak.
And look, if you're the spouse who's not in crisis, if you're, man, make sure that you're asking yourself, what does my spouse need from me right now? They're going through a really hard thing.
Right.
And not to minimize the impact that it has on the spouse who's not going through crisis, right? Like it does mean that probably you're doing some more things around the house. It does mean that if you have kids, that your responsibility with the kids has increased during the season. It does mean that you're not getting as much time with your spouse as you normally would. Like, it does have an impact on the spouse who's not dealing with the crisis. But the impact on you, if you're we need better language.
I know.
But the impact on the one who's going through the crisis is much greater than the impact of what the other spouse is dealing with, almost always, right? And so we have to just keep asking, how can I support you in this season? How can I help you in this season? And if helping them looks like going, okay, I'm not going to get as much time with them right now, and I'm going to have to be okay with that, because this is only a season. This too shall pass. It does mean I'm going to have to pick up some slack with the kids and do some more things around the house, and maybe cook my own meal in the evening if you're not the spouse who normally cooks, and all of that stuff. It's like, but this is only a season, and this is how I can love them well right now. And so I'm going to do my best to love them well. I'm going to lay my life down for them.
And so then I think the crisis spouse needs to not take that for granted, right? Like, don't feel entitled to that.
Right.
You need to recognize what your spouse is doing, that's so you are allowed to go and do whatever it is that you need to go do. Like, you've got to acknowledge that. You can't be like, this is hard. Why are you talking to me? Why do you need something from me right now? I told you this was hard. Like, you need to recognize, man, I appreciate you taking care of X, Y, and Z so that I can put all my focus on this crisis.
Gratitude, honor, and appreciation are so massive, and we undervalue them, and we don't recognize how absolutely vital they are to a healthy marriage, and how absolutely, man, we should put so much purpose and pay so much attention to those things, and because that we don't just know how much our spouse means to us. They have to tell us, and so make sure on both sides of this that you're being appreciative and you're showing gratitude and that you're honoring them. So like if you've got a spouse who's caring for someone who's sick, and let them know, hey, I see what you're doing. I am so proud of you for taking on that responsibility and for doing what you're doing. And I want you to know that I see that. And so I'll take care of things here at home while you're having to do that.
Well, and I think so often though, so switching to the other spouse, so the neglected spouse.
Right.
That's what we'll call it for now, right? So, but often the
crisis spouse and neglected spouse.
Right.
That'll
Okay.
work.
Okay. So the neglected spouse gets angry because they're being neglected. They're
Right.
thinking, why is this other situation or this other person, if it's a family member or whatever, why is this other thing getting all the attention?
Right.
And so then they get angry. And then what that does to the crisis spouse is that puts them, well, like, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
Like, do I fight with my neglected spouse and say, like fight back for the position that they're in, or, they feel torn between the two situations going, I feel like I need to take care of this crisis and yet my spouse is needing my attention. Like, how do they navigate that? And so then that's really, like you said earlier, that's extra stress on the crisis spouse.
Yeah.
Because they're like, well, now I've got to manage this problem and what's going on at home.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that you don't express as the neglected spouse, hey, I
miss you.
Yeah, I'm missing time with you, or I'm missing connecting, or, like, hey, what's going on? Like, I'm looking forward for this crisis to be over so that we have more time together, or our time together doesn't get interrupted with the crisis, whatever it is. But it's like acknowledging what your spouse is going through, but don't put pressure on them to not be able to handle the crisis that they're facing.
Yeah. And I would say beware. If you're the neglected spouse, our tendency can be, for whatever reason, even though maybe intellectually, right? Rationally, we understand that the neglect is not intentional, right? They're not neglecting us just because they want to, but for our emotional response can be that.
Yeah.
Right? Our emotional response can be one of blame, like you're not paying attention to me, and we have to really be aware of that and really push back against that kind of emotional response, because what you're feeling is the empty space that your spouse usually feels. You're missing your spouse. But emotionally, we'll respond in a way that's placing blame on the spouse rather than recognizing that it's a result of the situation that you're in, and then and then giving space for that, and recognize, look, this isn't their doing. This isn't on purpose. This is a byproduct of what we're going through, and it's only for a season. And so I'm gonna hold and two, like, we're going through this, right? I think that's a huge part of it. You have to, like, if you're not seeing yourself as a team and we're going through this together, then your response will be, well, why are you doing this?
Well, and a phrase that I use quite a bit, or anyway, I picked it up from someone and I really like it. It's about like what do you filter your words through? So like if you stop and filter your words through your mouth, they're typically not very kind. But if you let your words filter through your heart, it's a different story. And if you take time to filter your feelings and your words through your heart, I would expect that you would be proud of your spouse, that they're willing to take care of the situation that they're in, right? That if it's a family member that's ill, that you're willing, that your spouse is compassionate enough to want to give of their time for that, or that they're dedicated to their job enough that they want to solve the problem that they've been tasked with. They're wanting to do right by the situation. Like, ultimately, in theory, I would expect that those crisis moments would be, couched in, or in a need for an obligation, and like being selfless in some ways for the crisis spouse, right? So there's a crisis that's present itself. You're giving of yourself to deal with it. If you take a minute, like you would be proud of your spouse for doing that. Going, I appreciate that they're like willing to sacrifice these things to take care of the issue. It's just when you feel like you're the one being sacrificed, it's harder to do,
right?
Because you're like, why is everybody else getting all the time? Why is everybody else getting their care and their love, and and that can be difficult, but it has to be for a season.
Yeah. I think it's helpful to kind of put yourself in their shoes or think about how you would want people to respond. So like I was thinking about like if I died, how would I want our daughters to respond to you, right? What would I want them to do for you? Would I want them to,
This is terrible.
Maybe, but I mean, I'm just saying like, so let's say, and hopefully years from now, right? So
we've already talked about this, that I get to die first because you're the one that has to like talk to everybody at the funeral and let them be sad to you because I don't want to do that. So
well,
just so you know, we've talked about this.
We don't get to pick. So, but so let's say that I died, right? And I would want our daughters to support you, to be there for you, which would require probably them to neglect their future husbands and, for a season to support you through the grieving process, to help you sift through, the estate and the insurance.
All the junk in the basement.
Yes, all of it, right?
Right.
And I would want them to do that for you. And I would want their spouses to understand the necessity of that and be supportive of them in that season. And so I think if we can place ourselves in scenarios like that and say, well, how would I want someone to respond if this was me? How would I want, and then that would give us the perspective to give grace to our spouse and go, they're doing exactly what I would want my kid to do. If the shoe were on the other foot, they're doing exactly what, I would want them to do if I were going through crisis. They're doing, whatever. Yeah. It's so like, it's when we are focused on ourselves and what I don't have right now, that we lose perspective and we lose the ability then to give our spouse the support that they need.
Well, and it's back to the statement of express your needs in the form of a request and not a complaint.
Right.
Like it's okay to have a need and it's okay to express it and just saying, hey, I need some time with you. Like I know that you've got a lot of obligation right now. And so I understand that. But when you get a chance, I need some time with you.
Yeah.
As opposed to this stupid situation, all you ever doing is messing with X, Y, and Z. And I don't ever get any of your time. And so like, I don't matter to you anymore. Whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
Like not making it hard, but just expressing, hey, I get that this needs your time and I'm letting that happen, but I need you to acknowledge that I need something.
Well, man, I mean, how much different does I really miss you sound and feel than you're not paying any attention to me?
Yeah.
And they're expressing the same desire. Right?
Well, they're rooted in the same place.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. They're coming from the desire is the same. The desire is I want to spend time with my person.
Or,
the person
like, I want to feel important to you. I want to feel like a priority to you.
Yeah.
I want my needs to matter to you.
But how we express it makes all the difference in the world.
Totally.
Because you're not paying any attention to me automatically builds a wall, automatically places us in a place of opposition. We're on opposite sides of an issue. Whereas I really miss you, or I'd really need to spend some time with you whenever we can, or, whatever. Like, there are several different ways you could express that invite the other person into relationship, into support, into caring, into love. And and it's completely different. We'll get a completely different response.
Yeah. Well, and so also bear in mind the crisis spouse may need to talk about what's going on. They may need you to be their sounding board, their support system, to be able to say, this is what I'm carrying right now.
Yeah.
For me, I'm definitely a verbal processor. I need to talk about my stuff, right? And so then
I didn't know that.
whatever. And so if we're 25 years in and you don't know that, we should end this podcast right now. Anyway, so I need to talk about my stuff. So like that will be important for me. Like if I can, right? Like sometimes those things are bound in confidentiality, and so then you can't.
Sure.
But to the extent that I can process it, I need to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And so then what I don't need to happen is for you to be like already mad that I'm not spending time with you, and then this is just icing on the cake because I still need to talk about what's happening. Mm-hmm. You're like, well, here we are in time together, and we're still talking about this crisis situation.
Yeah.
Right. And so then that's not ideal.
Right.
And so meaning that the neglected spouse needs to be, sensitive to the fact that they may need to be talking through what's going on. That doesn't mean that they don't want to pay attention to you, but they're just like unloading and sharing and wanting to carry the load together.
Yeah.
And so, it's not that they're just like wanting to continue to neglect you. It just maybe that may be what needs to happen so that they can unload and then be present. Because if, I know for me, if I am consumed with whatever's going on, like it's hard to be present without like, I need to process through it and then I can be present. Because otherwise I'll be distracted and be thinking about it.
Yeah. And I think, so I don't know if you're familiar with the think method of, it's a method of determining whether an issue needs to be brought up or not. Mm-hmm. And so before you go talk to your spouse, ask yourself these questions, and the think is an acronym for, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it important? Is it necessary? And is it kind? And so, if we ask ourselves all of those things, well, maybe it is true. Maybe it meets several of those criteria, right? It's true. It's important. It's, it's necessary. But I'm not presenting it in a way that's helpful or kind. Well, how could I present it in a way that's helpful and kind? Or maybe it's true and important, but it's not necessary in this moment, right? Because it wouldn't be helpful. I'm going to add stress to their life right now, and they're already dealing with a really difficult thing. And so it wouldn't be helpful for me to bring this up right now, but it is going to need to be brought up, sooner rather than later. So when would be an opportunity for me to do this? What is, and how can I do that in a way that's kind and helpful rather than, speaking out of my hurt feelings, in a way that would be destructive, speaking out of my feelings in a way that's like vulnerable and open and honest, but isn't rude or, because love isn't rude, right? Love is patient and kind and, doesn't keep a record of wrongs and, celebrates the truth and, all the things that 1 Corinthians 13 tells us that love is.
Yeah. Well, and I think being able to acknowledge as the crisis spouse that your neglected spouse is going through something and saying, hey, I recognize this is impacting you. I think it's a big deal.
Yes.
Like, I can think of a time for us that there was a season that our girls needed some extra attention from me because of what was happening in our family. And so I remember very distinctly saying, hey, I know that the girls have been getting my time. And so I see you. I know that you need time with me. Right now, I feel like the girls need me. And then, and so then I remember that really shifted. Well, actually the look on your face, honestly, but like shifted that you realized that I did see you.
Yeah.
And that I wasn't trying to not interact with you or meet your needs.
Right. It's because I knew that the girls needed you. Right. I mean, it wasn't like I was unaware of the situation that was going on and unaware of what our girls needed. Well, really from both of us, but specifically from you. Like they needed a mom in those moments. There are times when girls just need their mama. And so I knew that they needed you. But it made a big difference to me to know that you saw that I needed you too. Yeah. And so I think that goes a long, long, long way.
Right. Which I don't know that I would have always handled it that way. I think there would have been seasons probably before that I would have just been annoyed that you needed something too. Yeah. That I've been like, dude, can you not see that I've got stuff that like you're grown up. You can handle this. Right. Get over it. I'll get to you when I get to you.
Well, and right? And so then this response that elicits from the neglected spouse is, well, I need you too, And so again, goes back to if we can focus on the other person. Yeah. If we can look objectively, like divorce yourself from the situation, like remove yourself from the situation, and see what the other person is facing and acknowledge it.
Yeah.
We have to see the other person. We have
Right.
to see what they're going through. We have to recognize and acknowledge what they're going through.
And so does it really just go back down to communication?
That's a big part of it, for
yeah,
sure.
in some pieces, for sure.
It's a big part of it, for sure. But I think the bigger underlying issue in all of this is living for the other person, like looking for opportunities and ways to support them, to love them well. Like, it's not about me should be our mantra. I mean, it should. It's not about me.
Well, and I would even say too that like when you're the crisis spouse and you're going through something, a lot of times it feels bigger than you, and it feels like it's hard to manage, and like you might not feel confident in that. And so if you feel like you're failing in this crisis, right, and then your spouse comes around and says you're neglecting me, you aren't even taking care of this, and like that's a double whammy because you're like, well, I can't even manage this crisis, and my family's falling apart. So like you feel even less successful at managing what's going on. When what you may need is just some words of encouragement to say, hey, like as the crisis spouse, the neglecting spouse say to you, hey, I know that this is taking your time and I know that you can do this. I want time with you.
So you ever, and I know you've experienced this, like you're walking around, say at an amusement park with your family, and one kid hands you their bag.
Yeah.
And then the next kid hands you their bag. Yes. And then the third kid hands you their bag, and then imagine that your spouse comes over and goes, hey, carry my bag too. That's essentially what you're doing when you have a spouse who's going through a crisis and dealing with a whole lot of stuff, and they're loaded down with the weight of what they're carrying for that season. And then you go, hey, carry this too. Well, I mean, imagine, I know the frustration just in the amusement park scenario. I know the frustration of like all of a sudden you look down and you're carrying every item for every family member. Like, how did I end up with all of this stuff? And it's easy to get frustrated and go, take this back, take this back, take this back,
or you buy a wagon and pull it around.
Right. But I mean, I guess I'm just trying to paint
it's a good visual.
Yeah, paint a visual of what that looks like. Like, you're carrying as much as you can carry, and then the person who should be coming alongside you and going, hey, let me help you carry that. Instead comes along and goes, hey, carry this too.
Can we talk a little bit about like not communicating that you're going through something hard? That like in my mind, it's a stereotypical thing where like maybe the husband wouldn't share that they're going through something. But that may not be true either. Like women, the wife may not communicate it because they don't feel like that their husband's going to care or, have or hold space for it, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so why is it important that we communicate and ask for help?
Well, because the only way that I will truly understand what you're going through and how you're, is if you tell me. It's one thing for me to observe from the outside, and there are certain things I could pick up for sure, right? And I could respond to them, hopefully in a good way. But observing from the outside doesn't really let me know how you're feeling. It doesn't really give me the opportunity to respond with what you really need from me. It leaves me guessing. And so you don't want to leave your spouse guessing because we fill in the blanks. And most of the time, unfortunately, we fill in the blanks with a false narrative rather than a true one, a real one.
Yeah.
And so I think that's super important. I think there are several reasons why we might neglect to tell our spouse. I know maybe we've talked about this a little on another episode, but men can tend to withhold from their wives because they want to protect them. And so it comes from a good impulse, right? I don't want to burden them down with this. I want to protect them from this. I don't want to, so the impulse is good, right? But the end result is that you end up by your own doing feeling like that your spouse isn't supporting you. And then the other, and then like let's say I'm not sharing with you what's going on, but I'm grouchy and I'm complaining and I'm mean and then you don't know why. And so then that creates weird tension and conflict in our relationship in addition to whatever else I'm carrying from work or what have you. And so it exacerbates the problem. And then for wives, maybe they're not sharing with their husbands because they don't feel like he's going to care because he's not emotionally available. Well, that's a symptom of a bigger issue, a systemic issue in our relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's really about vulnerability too, and sharing how you feel about things, and just being willing to be open. Like if you can be vulnerable, like that's just huge.
It's funny how maybe you grew up in a family that didn't talk about their feelings and didn't talk about their problems, and you just suck it up and you don't cry and whatever else, and you recognize that was really unhealthy, but you still are living out that same kind of pattern in your marriage.
Yeah, because you haven't learned any other way of doing things.
Right.
Like that's all you know. It's what's familiar. So you see that it's unhealthy and not good, but you do it anyway.
Right. But then you're stuck in that thing of expecting a different outcome, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. In order for the outcomes to change, you're going to have to change the way you do things.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to have to take a risk and talk about your feelings, which is going to feel really uncomfortable. You're not going to want to do it. It's going to feel awkward. You may not even have language or words to put around it.
Yeah.
Honestly, as a man, you might feel like it's not manly, because,
which to me is the complete opposite. Like someone that can express their feelings is very manly to me.
Right.
I think.
Yeah. But that's not what men are taught a lot of times.
I agree.
And so it may feel really hard and it's going to feel unnatural at first. But if you want things to change, you're going to have to do it.
Yeah.
You're going to have to do it. I mean, it's like dieting, and exercise. Like if you want to be healthy, you got to do the work. And being healthy emotionally and spiritually is no different.
Right.
You're going to have to apply yourself to the work.
And so what would your suggestions be if someone like recognizes that they don't know how to talk about their feelings or how to express those things? What do you suggest?
Say that. Say, I don't know how to talk about my feelings. I mean, that's the first step. Acknowledge it. Find someone that find another man, maybe who's a little bit older than you or is a peer, but you feel like, man, they're doing this really well. Ask them about it. Find out their story. I would be willing to bet that at least one of the guys that you know in your world that you feel like is doing it right and doing it well had to learn how to do it right and well. They didn't grow up in a family that looked like that.
Right.
And so ask and find, go to counseling together as a couple.
Well, even individually. I think I told you there was one day I had like a 10-hour day and every single one of them were men because men want to know how to talk about their feelings.
Yeah.
I mean, like the ones that are confident enough to go, okay, so I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I don't want to live this out anymore. Like I want to do things differently. And so then they come and we talk about that and we, get them comfortable with the dialogue, get them comfortable with the language. And so it's about practice. It's about familiarity. And so, absolutely go to counseling.
Yeah.
Get the lingo. But ultimately, being able to share is important.
And then look, in all of this, we can never discount that it is the work of the Holy Spirit. If you're not a follower of Jesus and you're listening to this, I don't know how to tell you how to navigate life without the Spirit of God. I really don't, honestly. Because as a follower of Jesus, we have to recognize, man, that it is the work of the Holy Spirit in us. And so go to the Lord in prayer. look to the scriptures, like study the word of God and see, like look at the Psalms and see how David poured his heart out to God. He was not afraid to express what he was feeling, good, bad, ugly. Like he took it all to God, and laid it at his feet, and then asked the Lord, to do the work in him, to change him. Search me, O God, and know my heart. See if there's any wicked way in me and lead me into the way everlasting. Right? That's Psalm 139, and like follow that pattern. Just throw it all at the feet of Jesus. He wants to do that work in you. He wants to make you like him. He wants to shape you and form you so that you can live a life that is free from and overcomes the power of sin and death, and that lives in freedom and victory. That's God's heart for you.
Jesus says, come as you are, not stay as you are.
Right.
And so he does want more from you.
Yeah.
He wants to mold you and wants to make you like him.
Yeah.
But we have to submit to that.
Right.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I think that's all I have to say about caring for each other. You got anything else you want to add?
Nope. I don't think so. Just, it's hard work.
Yeah. Well, marriage is hard.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, be prepared. Like this is not,
It's not for the
easy.
faint of heart.
No, it isn't.
Right.
It isn't. So,
but it is worth it. Fighting for your marriage, fighting for vulnerability and knowing one another and loving one another is worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it.
Have you thought about what you want our next topic to be?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay. So, but we'll be back with episode 9. That sounds crazy that we're already at episode 9.
Yeah.
Right. And so, Well,
hey, I would say this. Do us a favor. If you're enjoying this podcast, if it's helpful to you and you think it might be helpful to other people, rate it and review it on iTunes or Spotify. We would love it if you shared it with somebody. If this is helpful to you and you think it might help somebody else, we want to help as many people as we possibly can and make an impact on marriages and help them to be healthy.
Well, and I think we said this before too. If there's a specific topic that they would be interested in us covering or discussing, like let us know that.
Yeah.
So that we can figure out how to best meet the needs of our listeners.
Right.
So that we can talk about those things. So, okay, we're still waiting on that tagline.
I don't have one.
I know, is what I'm saying. Maybe we should give it up. Give up the effort.
Know.
We don't have one to wrap it up.
Enjoy some coffee and we'll tell you next time. I don't know.
Okay, next time.
That was terrible.
That was. See you later.
Bye.